Have you ever listened to a person talk for less than a minute and known you weren't going to get along with that person? What did they say? Story 1. Yes, this guy hopped into our Discord group a few months back. He was a friend of a friend, but he didn't think to just add him to our server, not our group chat. We all hop into a call, and first thing he does is make some remarks that are very politically sensitive. Send some graphic photos and made some inappropriate remarks. Didn't expect to meet someone and have him offend 6 people in the span of 10 minutes. Story 2. Parent of one of my kids' friends at school said there was a mouse in their house and his wife wanted him to kill it, but he didn't want to kill any creatures. He wants to make friends with them instead. But wife insisted, so he threw his shoe at it and eventually managed to hit it. But it wasn't dead, so he threw his shoe at it another 4 times. It still wasn't dead, so he poured boiling water over it to kill it. It still didn't die, so he poured boiling water over it again. It still wasn't dead, so he decided to leave it alone in the hopes that it would peacefully pass away. The logic of being too squeamish to kill something, and instead decide to torture it to death slowly in the most agonizingly painful way, absolutely blew my mind. Story 3. Years ago, me and my ex-husband went to see a movie with an older colleague of his. Before the movie, we had dinner at like a chain restaurant steakhouse type place. Staff on the floor was all 20-ish. I never met this man before, but in the first few minutes of sitting down and looking at the menu, he very confidently told us how he came there a lot and flirted with the female staff because they loved the attention. The best part? His daughter worked there. All I could think was how I would literally cringe myself through the floor if I was 20 and my 50-years-old dad came into my place of work and perved on my coworkers because he didn't understand that they only put up with him because they are paid to do so. Story 4. They talked negatively about someone else in a very judgy way. There was this mom in my daughter's school who seemed to know everyone. She talked to me and she spoke so bad about these people. Then moments later I saw her interacting in a friendly way with those she was judging. My eyes rolled so much I could see my brain telling me not to get involved with her. And I was right, because by the time school year ends, her friends hated her, and they were talking behind her back too. Story 5. She showed up to a little get-together, and the person who invited her said that they would be taking bets on who could sit with her for more than 30 minutes. $10 per person. Winner kept the pot. I assumed they were just being rude and planned to tell her of her friend's plans as soon as she showed up. She walked in, looked at me and scoffed and asked if the gray car outside belonged to me. I said yes. She told me that with the money that car cost, I could have bought something nicer. Okay, well, whatever. I went to get a drink and sat to watch the crowd gather around her. I already didn't like her, but she went on to tell everyone about how she could never date someone who had a crappy credit score or couldn't pay their vehicles off after buying it. Someone who wanted to quit the contest asked for a cigarette. She opened up her purse and showed everyone a fresh pack of smokes, and then told everyone why she doesn't smoke and why anyone who asks for a cigarette is either too broke to buy them or doesn't plan ahead of times. The guy asked her for one of her cigarettes. She said no and put them back in her purse. She talked about all the cars she bought. Basically, her parents would co-sign for her and pay the car off to build her credit, and she would give them a few thousand to pay them back. She was nuts and wouldn't stop talking. I disliked her, but was also fascinated with her. She was super weird. Update. So I have gotten a few questions about this girl and that night. Also, who is Gina? There was something like 15-20 people there, and most entered the contest. I think the pot got up to $100 to $120. The winner was just some guy who I didn't know. He spent the money getting everyone McDonald's and beer, so he was pretty cool. She was about 22, 23. She had just finished getting her high school diploma because she had dropped out to make money, according to her. I think she sold some milkshake things and fitness plans with some MLM. For those wondering what happened to her, I'm not 100% what happened to her. She wasn't my friend, but she did show up to a few parties I was at, and she seemed calmer. She used to bring her own bottle of liquor and wouldn't share, which was kind of funny because on one occasion they caught her filling her bottle with a bottle of Jack that someone had brought and left on the kitchen counter. But she swore that all she drank was Hennessy and Fireball. Story 6. Was a customer at work. Naturally, I wouldn't be friends. But even in a setting where we could become friends, it wasn't happening. I came up to her to see if she had any questions about our critters. I work in a pet shop. And the very first thing she asked was if parakeets could talk because she wanted to teach them racial slurs. Biggest nope of my life. Story 7. New guy at work. Super fake by being overly excited and super overly comfortable with everyone in the first minute. He's all mommy this and poppy that to everyone and very overly touchy. We were almost all Hispanics there and everyone was uncomfortable. First phone call of the day, he hangs up cursing and taking it super personally that someone hung up on him. Daily occurrence in customer service. After about 6 months, I put in my 2 weeks notice solely because I couldn't work next to or with him anymore. He would also get overly gossipy and personal. My boss rejected my notice and transferred him. He couldn't stand the guy either. No one could. Story 8. Had just started a job, and within a minute of meeting one of my new colleagues, he waxes lyrical about how weak it is that one of our other colleagues uses an inhaler, oblivious to the fact I myself use an inhaler, though my asthma is mild and well managed. Ironically, the shit-talking colleague in question had no discernible chin and looked very out of shape himself. Story 9. I started my PhD a few months ago, and one of a common starter conversation with postgraduates you just meet is, "What is your thesis about?" Well, I get asked the question first, and after describing my dissertation theme, the other guy goes, "Oh, I see. Well, mine is actually important," with a very condescending tone. Well, pal, fuck you too, I guess. Story 10. Asked a guy what he does at a business networking event. Well, I'm a chiropractor but looking to get out. How come? All these Me Too accusations. In another state I had 3 of them. Good thing none of them went to the bar. Edit. He probably said board instead of bar. As soon as he started complaining about Me Too accusations, I pretty much tuned him out. Story 11. Literally last night, was at a local pool comp, and went to introduce myself to my second round opponent. We shake hands, and his first words to me are, "Weak fucking handshake, bro," followed by, "I hope you like banter, mate," then proceeded to talk shit about every aspect of my game. The worst part was he was actually good at pool, so it just seems like he was generally a cunt. Some of his other opponents got it a lot worse than I did as well. Highlight of the night was when the comp host basically yelled in his face, "Everyone in this room fucking hates you," which received a round of applause. He didn't seem to understand why that was. Just banter, bro. Edit. Ah, the comp is 90% regulars that are there every week. This was the guy's first time playing there. He knew no one except for the couple of mates he brought. I can assure people calling me a liar that he was universally hated. He ended up losing the final, which received more of a response than the host yelling at him, but yeah, lol. I don't even know why I'm responding to this. I guess I have never had this much attention on anything I have ever shared on the internet. Story 12. She was complaining the 15-year-old kid who just fled from the war in Ukraine wasn't working hard enough at his dishwashing job. The kid doesn't want to be alone in a dishwashing kitchen all day, not able to speak to anyone. He should be in school at home with all his friends. Of course he's not excited about the stupid dishes. The lack of compassion was astounding. And she was indeed a wretched person, so my initial impression was totally correct. Story 13. I met one of my new colleagues at a barbecue that was being hosted by our work. I, a man, drove with another coworker, a woman and a friend of mine, so we arrived together. When I was alone for a moment, this guy, whom I've never spoken to before, comes up next to me and says, "Yo, dude, you hitting that?" Gestures to my friend. I said no, and she also has a boyfriend. He very exaggeratedly says, "Damn." He got fired 2 years later for sexually harassing an intern. Story 14. I went to a teacher conference. My colleague introduced me to a lady from another school. We shook hands and exchanged names. Her first question was, "Are you married?" which seemed forthright but not entirely uncommon. When I said yes, she asked if my wife is Chinese. I said yes again. Her response was, "Because of you, one Chinese man will be unable to find a wife." I'd love to say I had a clever comeback. Instead, I was stunned into silence. Story 15. Went to the penthouse party of a guy my friend used to hook up with. This dude gave me Patrick Bateman vibes, from his house decor to the way he talked. Total creep. The only time he spoke directly to me the entire party he was making fun of homeless people. I did not like him. Story 16. My papa would come into the restaurants that I worked in. I usually was his server. But once someone else got his table, my coworkers would fight to take him. My papa was a funny dude that left enormous tips and joked with everyone around him that was cool with it. He was one of those tall, skinny guys that just looks like a guy you could talk to. I remember I had told him about one of my coworkers having a rough time of it. He came in, specifically requested her, and then left her a $100 bill as a tip. When I got home, he asked if she had gotten the tip. Of course she had, and then broken down hugging me, telling me that my grandfather was the best person she'd ever met. She wasn't wrong. Story 17. They talked negatively about someone else in a very judgy way. There was this mom in my daughter's school who seemed to know everyone. She talked to me and she spoke so bad about these people. Then moments later I saw her interacting in a friendly way with those she was judging. My eyes rolled so much I could see my brain telling me not to get involved with her. And I was right. Because by the time school year ends, her friends hated her, and they were talking behind her back too. A girl that used to be my best friend is like this. It was the weirdest thing to see her bitch about all these people, then have Insta photos up a few days later with them. I didn't notice she did this until our friendship was on the line, so I asked other people if she did this and they said yes too.